Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Great to see everyone this morning. Hey, in case you haven't noticed, Christmas is coming like really fast, right? It's like 13 more shopping days till Christmas. Christmas is a great time of the year. How many really enjoy the Christmas season? Just raise your hand. Okay, we're going to have a little poll here, and we're going to decide what is the favorite thing about Christmas. So I'm going to put 5 things up. There's probably 100 things I could put up. I'll put 5 things up here, and we're going to applaud which one we like the best. So save your applause until they're all up there, so this will be a good survey. So the first one is Christmas decorations and lights. Christmas decorations lights are like magical from like Thanksgiving to New Year's. You ever notice that? Then after New Year's, they kind of lose their magic. I don't know why that is, but Christmas decorations and lights. Shopping for gifts. Maybe you like to shop for gifts. Maybe it's the family feast. Maybe it's giving of gifts. And maybe it's the receiving of gifts. Now, before we do the last 2, remember what Jesus said, right? It's better to give than to receive. Okay, by applause, how many of you, your favorite thing is Christmas lights and Christmas decorations? Okay, not bad. How about shopping for gifts? Okay. Let's try that again. Remember, it's better to give than to receive. How about shopping for gifts? Okay. Well, that's pretty obvious, huh? How about the family feast? How about the giving of gifts? How about the receiving of gifts? You know, even though the God's still working on us, right? So I think it's the giving of gifts. Would you agree with that? Okay. Well, I mean, really, but what would life be without Christmas? I mean, what would winter be without Christmas? Christmas would be just, our winter would just be like this really, really long, cold period of time. But with Christmas, we have something to look forward to, right? And then after Christmas, we have that Christmas boost that takes us, well, it takes me about halfway through January. Then I have half of January and February to deal with. But can you imagine no Christmas? Can you imagine no gifts and no Christmas decorations and no lights and no Black Friday and none of that stuff? But more important, what would life be like without the Christmas story? Without the story of this young virgin named Mary giving birth to the Son of God? It wouldn't just be a cold winter, it'd be a cold life. But Christmas has come. And Christmas changes everything, which is the title of the series we're going to be doing for the next 3 weeks. Christmas changes everything. John 1:14 says this. It says, the Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. the Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. God gave the greatest present He could give. God gave the present of His presence. And His presence changes everything. And the title of this particular part of the series is Change for You. God's Christmas changes everything. And today we're going to talk about change for you. And the first point you have in your outline there is that we are changed as we see His glory. The Apostle John also writes this. Also in John 1:14, he says, "We have seen His glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father." John was writing this gospel as an old man. And as he wrote this gospel, most of the people, if not all the people who had walked with Jesus on the earth, were gone. All the apostles were gone. He was the last one. And he was assuring the next generation and all the generations after that God did in fact become man. And He became man in Jesus Christ. John also writes in his letter, the first epistle of John, chapter 1, verse 1, he says, "That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked at and our hands have touched, this we proclaim concerning the word of life." So John's message is clear. He is saying this word that was with God and this word that is God, this word that created all things, He in fact became a man. And we have heard Him, and we have seen Him, and we have touched Him, and we have seen His glory. The glory of the eternal Father. So what does John mean? What did John see in Jesus that made him say that we've seen His glory? Was Jesus, I know pictures of Jesus, we see Jesus glowing in the medieval pictures. The Bible doesn't say, well, there was one time where He was transfigured and He was glorified in that way, but as a rule, when people walked up to Him, I don't think He was glowing. The Bible doesn't say that He had anything remarkable about His appearance. So what did John see? What was the glory of God that John saw? Well, we see God's glory every day in creation. Creation's incredible. It's incomprehensible. My wife and I, we're going to go see part of creation we've never seen before. We're heading out tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., flying to Miami. Looking for a ride to the airport around 3 o'clock. I wouldn't do that to anybody. Yeah. I have people volunteer. I wouldn't do that to you. I just only do it to my wife, I guess. I don't know. Flying out at 5 o'clock, going to Miami. We're going to go on a cruise. This is our 25th wedding anniversary. And cruise, I bought this cruise well over a year ago, before we even start this church. So we're going to Miami. We're going to go on a cruise. And I've never been in the ocean to the point where I couldn't see the shore. So I'll be looking forward to seeing this part of God's creation, I think, anyway. Then we're going to do some snorkeling. I've never been snorkeling. I've heard that when you go on the coral reefs, you go snorkeling. It's just amazing. The plant life and the sea life, sea part of God's creation. I don't want to see any barracuda or shark. I don't want to see that part of God's creation. But we're going to see parts of God's creation we've never seen. It's glorious. There's parts of God's creation that we will never experience. There's billions of stars and solar systems out there. We'll never experience it. God's creation is just an expression of His extravagance, of His glory. But I don't think that was what John was talking about. There's a side of God's glory. He became one of us. And we see that side of His glory that we couldn't see otherwise. And He revealed His glory to us. I remember a long time ago when I first became a Christian, it's been over 35 years ago. First became a Christian, and I used to hear this preacher preach. She was a woman, and she was Pentecostal, and she was kind of loud, and she'd get kind of rowdy. Anybody know what I mean? Which, it worked for her. Because there were sermons I heard 35 years ago. I still remember. How many think remember any of my sermons 35 years ago? Don't raise your hand. Oh, I have one person, thank you. Yeah. You and my mother probably know too. But she had this one sermon And the gist of the sermon was that the angels are going to have to step back. And what she meant was, or what she spoke, was that the angels, they're before God. They see the face of God. They see the magnificence of God. And they're in awe of Him. But when we get there, we're going to have to step back. Because we've experienced a side of God's glory that they've never experienced. We've experienced the depth of God's love that redeems us out of this fallen world. We've experienced the extravagance of His compassion that they've never experienced. So when we get there, we're going to have to step back, according to this preaching. God didn't become an angel. God became a man. And we behold His glory. There's a story of a king. He was a good king. He was a young king. He was a powerful king. And he would get in his carriage, and he would ride throughout the countryside of his kingdom. And one day, he came upon this young maiden working in the fields, and as sometimes happened with guys, he was smitten by her, inquired about her, and the more he learned about her, the more he loved her. And he wanted to make her his queen, so he told his advisors about his situation. He loved this young peasant girl, wanted her to be his queen. And the advisor said, well, Your Highness, just speak the word. She is your subject. Speak the word, and we'll go get her, and she'll be your queen. But the king didn't want that. He wanted this maiden to love him as he loved her. So another advisor said to him, well, just show up at her humble cottage in your royal entourage with your carriage, and she will be overwhelmed by your magnificence. And she'll happily come and leave that life of labor and enjoy the luxuries of the palace. But the king didn't want that, because he would never know if she loved him as he loved her. So he thought about these things for some time, and then he finally realized what he had to do. So late one night in his palace, he took off his crown, and he took off his royal ring with the royal insignia, took off his royal garments, and put upon himself the garments of a peasant. He left the palace through the servants' gates, and he entered the world of peasantry, to win the heart of the one whom he truly loved, hoping that she would also love him. Well, you know, that's not just a story about a king, because God at any time He wanted to